Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist in Las Vegas and Joe Mac in New York. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Jim. We're itching closer to that football season, the college kicking off. We had a couple of games last Saturday, but a pretty full schedule this weekend. And getting close to the start of the NFL, so yes, it's a great time of the year right now.
Yeah, I just have to mention the fans. Sometimes it's, the sound on the podcast when we do it is a little off, and we're going to improve that in the next couple days. So we apologize if you don't like the sound. You can always turn it off. But we have some good information to talk about today, and maybe some free plays that we can give out, and also a message about Joe and Jim Hurley sports. But we had a lot of things happen. I mean, the Travers was run last week. That was a great race. We had the retirement of Andrew Luck, which was a shock to a lot of people. And now the aftermath of that, not only the booing by the Indianapolis fans, which is absolutely ridiculous, and the criticism by some of the talking heads out there that don't know what the hell they're talking about. The bottom line is, Mark Schlereth had a video the other day that I watched. And you got to realize as you go through life, whether it's aging or injuries from accidents or injuries from sports, life takes a lot away from you as you keep going. Your body just doesn't function as well when you're 60 as when it did when you were 30, and et cetera, et cetera. And, you might be able to run a marathon every day when you're 20, but when you get to 50, 60, you may not be able to walk across the street without your knees giving out or something. Well, you get a guy like Andrew Luck that comes into the league under Jim Irsay and Gregson, which was absolutely maybe the worst GM ever, in my opinion, in football. And the things that went on there, and he led the league in hits and in rushes and sacks and for 2 straight years. And then he goes out and he has to rehab for 2 years. He's not playing football, he's rehab. He's not really with the team. And it took a lot out of the kid. It's unfortunate because I thought this guy could have been the best, or could have been damn close to the best. And it's just a bad organization at the time. They've cleaned it up. I think they're doing pretty well right now. I have to compliment Jim Irsay for letting him slide on the $24 million that he owed. I think that was a nice parting gift to a kid that really had an upside that could have probably made it. $500 million over the rest of his career, but congratulations for the career he had, for his college years, and wish him the best. But Joe, that just went off a little venting there because it kind of made me mad that he had to get hurt and had to leave. But I wish him all the well, and I know you had a lot of thoughts about it too.
Yeah, no, when we were touching on it before we started to go on the air here. I'm not going to get into all the stuff, the bully. Listen, people want to criticize the fans. Fine. My point is, and you and I texted moments after the announcement came out, I happened to be watching the Florida-Miami game, and the scroll at the bottom of ESPN was basically breaking news, and I had to sit up on my couch and say, what? But you know what? We don't know how much pain this guy was in. He has told us how much pain he's been in and how much suffering he's done physically. And, I'm just going to say, for my end, I'm just sorry to see his career end. He was one of the guys. Now, I love football as much as the next guy. And, I love watching certain players in his prime. I loved watching Michael Vick. I used to tell friends I'd pay just about anything to watch him when he was in his heyday. Let me tell you, Andrew Luck was one of my favorite players to watch. He just played with a great passion. Obviously, he was an accurate, dead-on passer, a great leader. Everyone knows he also could run the ball effectively. It's just a shame that they really didn't give him the personnel for a long time there with the Colts. I mean, let's face it, that was a team that was kind of on the bottom of the scrap heap of the NFL. And as you said before, Jim, you drafted number 1, and let's face it, that means you're going to a bad team. And in his case, his offensive line and the personnel changes got worse as time went on, not better. They cleaned it up. They certainly have one of the probably top 5 offensive linemen in the league right now with the kid who was a rookie last year, Quentin Nelson. But let's face it, for most of his 7-year career, he had one of the bottom bottom 5 offensive lines in the league, and he paid the price because of it. I mean, not just they didn't run block or technical things like that. He got beat up. He got hurt. He spent many weeks where he couldn't practice, or he couldn't practice to the degree he wanted. And I mean, we got to take the man at his word. He said he spent the last 4 years in this cycle of pain and rehab and whatnot, and I'm just going to miss him as a player. He's just so much fun to watch, and just an exciting quarterback, and the league, it's a real blow to the league. They're really going to miss a guy like that. I will say this, I think the Colts are going to I think this is going to bond them a little bit. This is a guy that they love. I mean, I saw an interview with his wide receiver, T.Y. Hilton, who called Luck his best friend. And let me tell you, I think they're going to bond a little bit together, and I think Jacoby presents past experiences, albeit, he's only been in the league a couple of years. I think he's going to improve. I think, the irony to this is this offensive line is probably one of the better ones that Luck would have ever played behind. But basically, long story short, I think the Colts are going to pull together here and not fall off the map just because of Luck. Well, let's face it, they're losing one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks when healthy, or maybe top 3 quarterbacks in the league. I'm just sorry that we're not going to get to see him play anymore. I mean, I loved watching him at Stanford. He seemed to be on that trend, if we all remember now, we're going back 5, 6 years, where, they made the playoffs, then they won 1 game in the playoffs, then they won 2 games in the playoffs, and got beat by the Patriots at 1 year in the AFC Championship, and then they regressed, and his physical nature regressed. I mean, his overall health regressed. So it's a shame. It's a guy that I would have thought 2, 3 years into his career was going to win a couple of Super Bowls, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I know there's already been people saying, well, maybe he'll sit out a year. Who knows? I mean, I would think for the most part, he meant what he said. And again, I'm just saying to miss out on, what could have been a great next 5, 6, 7 years of his career. So it's a blow to the NFL, but life goes on in the NFL.
Well, yeah, it does. And we got a boatload of games on Thursday. We got college. We got pro football, week 4 preseason. We've got the WNBA, which actually is, if people aren't betting it, it is a profitable venture if you do your work. You got the CFL stuff going on, and they got tennis. Listen to this story. Somebody goes into the sports book the other day and bets the tennis open favorites, $30,000 parlay, to win $472. Now you talk about the worst possible money manager, stupid, unbelievable dumb bet in the world. you gotta. I mean, if you lose 1 out of the next 60 bets, you're a loser. So that's just unbelievable what people do. Apparently, the money doesn't matter. You just kind of basically throwing it up in the wind and hope it comes back to you.
Crazy.
it's
crazy. Although I have to say, I watched a few minutes of a couple of matches last night, and just from looking over who won, I mean, I know I saw on the women's side a couple of the top 10, top 15 players lost. So somebody out there, if they spotted their plays and bet a couple of these underdogs against, Kerber on the women's side or whatever, they could have made some cash yesterday. So, hey, this could be money, but like you said, you're not going to make it the way this other person bet.
No, but I've seen stuff like that before. Matter of fact, last year somebody bet $105,000, and if they'd have won, they won $2,000, and they actually lost. They lost $105,000. The profit would have been $2,000. I mean, it was just absolutely insane to make plays like that. But we got some games coming up that you want to talk about. Some pretty exciting stuff. The preseason is the preseason, but baseball is really getting exciting. Have you got anything special that you'd like to go over, Joe?
Sure. I was going to veer over to the college football world. As we said, we had a couple of games last Saturday. The Florida-Miami game, to me, that was who was better able to give that game away. I mean, boy, the last 10 minutes of that game. I know it was the first game of the year for everybody, the first game for Miami's coach, Manny Diaz. But boy, oh boy, there was some real stupidity there. I mean, passing the ball on the first down, Florida with a 4-point lead and 4 minutes to go. I mean, it was funny because then the camera shot to Steve Spurrier, the old Florida coach, in the stands, and you could see he was absolutely baffled by the play calling of his old Gators team. And then you had Miami having about 10 chances late because every time somebody threw the kid Williams, the freshman, threw a pass, even on 4th and 34, they committed a pass interference, which was a blatant interference. The kid argued, but of course, I mean, 4th and 34, the pass was about 28 yards. All they had to do was let the kid catch a tackle and the game's over. So both teams really tried to hand it away. But the bottom line there is the Dogs covered that game, and the under covered it. We had a winner with the Jim Hurley Network. We went under. We loved Florida's defense going in. They wound up with 8 or 9 sacks in the game, played great. But, you know, you look at this card coming up here, Jim, with Thursday night. You got Friday action and obviously a pretty full card on Saturday. You've got 31 double-digit favorites out there right now and only 12 single-digit favorites. It's, you know, we see a lot of this. Obviously, teams like this kind of ease into their season, but I don't know. I don't know if I remember it being so lopsided. Basically, 3/4 of the games that are being played starting Thursday night with double-digit favorites. You know, we're talking about some hefty favorites. I mean, I know Clemson is either the favorite or the co-favorite with Alabama to win the whole thing, but I don't remember the last time they were a 37-point favorite against Georgia Tech, who, you know, over the years has been at least a representative team, played in a lot of bowls. I know they have a new coach this year. Jeff Collins is in there for Paul Johnson, but 37 points. So anyway, basically what I'm saying, speaking for the Jim Hurley Network, we're going to definitely have winners and hopefully a chunk of winners this weekend during Labor Day weekend. But we are going to steer clear of several of these lines, where the line is like 25 and above. Too many, you know, flunky things can happen in these colleges. Let's face it, we all know that there's certain coaches, if they can please their alums, they'll do it. I mean, you know, you can point to just about any game out there. I mean, you take a game like Saturday where Ohio State's laying 27 or 28 points against Florida Atlantic. I mean, if they're up 24, 2 minutes of the game, do they try to score? Do they not? For the most part, I don't like getting involved in those games. But still, you've got a dozen games that are single-digit, and you've got, out of the 31 double-digit favorites, you still got a decent amount where the line is, you know, less than 20 points. But we're going to be checking it out. We definitely like a few things right now. We always like to look at going against new coaches if they happen to be laying points, because they've got a lot on their plate to start their coaching careers at places. So we'll be checking it all out, and we'll be having winners, and we're going to be giving them out on game day on our toll-free telephone number. Again, that's Jim Hurley's Network, 1-800-323-4453. We've been around since 1985. That's 1-800-323-4453. Sides, totals, the whole shebang. We're probably going to be a little more conservative with the NFL preseason, the final preseason. As everyone knows, they all play on Thursday nights. And, you know, you've had a good amount of line moves now because most of these teams are not playing any or many stars. So we're going to be in action with the NFL for preseason 4 before we kick off the 100-year celebration of the NFL. But we're going to dig into the college. So even though there's 30-plus double-digit faves out there, trust me, we're gonna get involved in a handful of plays overall. And hey, we had a great season last year. We're off to a good start with the under in the Florida-Miami game, so we're gonna go to zing it. Again, the toll-free number is 1-800-323-4453. Otherwise, you can go online, JimHurley.com. That's JimHurley.com.
Well, thank you, Joe. Speaking of college football, I'll give everybody a free play for this podcast. There's a Texas State plays at Texas A&M. It's a 33-point line. Texas A&M, of course, is favored. that's a big game for Texas State, and I doubt very much that it's going to attract that much attention for the Texas A&M players, except for guys maybe that know each other. But that's a huge game for Texas State. I'm going to take Texas State plus. Ended up with 34 on it, but it's 33 right now, and I'm going to play that. I will have a full card of college. Last week we were 2-0 in college, and the pros in the preseason were 12-3 documented right now in preseason. We're not going to have a lot of games in the preseason. Like Joe said, there's a lot of players aren't going to play, and when you look at the second half of these games, you may not be able to recognize one guy on the field. But we might have 2 or 3 plays for Thursday. Of course, that is the end of it, and there's no Saturday or Friday or Saturday stuff or Sunday stuff in the NFL, because this is it, the end of the preseason, thank God. And we're going to move on. The first regular season game is Green Bay with a new head coach and a healthy Aaron Rodgers going to the Chicago Bears, who won the division last year. And the Bears are 3.5 point favorite in that game. And that's huge. That's a divisional matchup. It's the beginning of the football season for these teams and for all of us. And, that will be a war. And and I'll have a play on that game as well. So that's you can go to jimfeist.com. You can go to Jim Hurley for Joe Mac. Joe, I don't know much about tennis. I don't bet tennis very much unless it's like an exceptional big matchup. But I don't know. Are you a tennis bettor?
Not really anymore. I dabbled in it in the past. It's funny. The Open is basically in my backyard. I am literally a 10-minute car ride from the U.S. Open, and it's a beautiful place, and I've been in many times over the years. I tell you what, to me, that's how to play it. If folks are going to play it, get in the early rounds here. Obviously, they're still in round 1 today. The match just started yesterday. You know what? If there's somebody that who's maybe not had a good recent health history, there's certain players. You really got to do your research, like any sport. If somebody's had a bad shoulder lately, like Sharapova, who last night got wiped out by Serena. For all the people that were calling it the best first-round match in recent history, it was a total blowout, and part of it apparently was Sharapova not being nearly 100%. But you could catch your, you can wind up, obviously, the deeper you get in the tournament, you could wind up taking prices with, legit top 10 players. And let's face it, we've seen it over the years. I saw a stat the other day that the big 3 of the men's side, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, they've won 54 of the last 65 major tournaments, which is amazing because it goes back to, about 2005. So 54 out of the last 65 major tournaments have been won by that big 3, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic. And somebody was, I don't know who it was on one of the broadcasts that time, was saying, maybe it's time for a change, maybe it's passing of the torch. And I said to a buddy yesterday, I said, what would you do here? Would you, if you were, even if you had to lay some odds, would you take the big 3 or would you take the field? And I think the consensus is they still take the big 3. But, Federer is about 38 years old. The other guys have a lot of tread off their tires. One of these days, we're going to see some younger crew come in. And I think there's, from the what I do know of the tennis, there's definitely great young talent, obviously on the women's side. There always seems to be a lot of upsets. The Cal last year was number 1 now. Osaka last year, she was just in the middle of the pack and wound up winning the whole thing. So those things can happen. A friend of mine I know, he used to like to take somebody in the first round and just, if they won, man or woman, just ride them until they got eliminated. And sometimes that strategy works. But basically, there's some good value out there. If you know somebody's got a bad hamstring or may not have played in their last 2 or 3 tournaments out there, and they're laying, and we see the prices. It's some crazy prices, laying 1,000 or something like that. You know what? You jump in with a dog here or there. You can make some money and enjoy the tennis. It's not a bad sport to bet. I just tended to play it more a few years ago, and now I'm more of a spectator of it, but you can make some money on it for sure.
Well, you talk about, off sports that people are starting to bet more. Tennis is one of them. Golf is another one where you can bet the matchups and the winner. And I mean, last week we saw the end of the FedEx matchups, and the Rory McIlroy wins $15 million. Second place guy got $5 million. I mean, incredible putts for $1 million, and just incredible stuff. And the books out here are getting flooded with action on golf and tennis, especially golf at this moment. Well, right now it's tennis because of the Open, but the golf is becoming very, very popular, and that's around the country because now more and more states are legalizing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And when I'd say a lot of guys out there, or men and women, are saying, hey, let's not get into these physical sports. Let's go play golf. Maybe we can win $15 million, which is like the biggest payday. And, I think you're going to see a lot of that. The great athletes are going to be moving away from some of these physical sports where they get banged up as much as they do. But these sports are growing in betting popularity, and it's great. It spreads out what we do, and it makes us a little busier, but if the opportunity is good, we can make some profit, in which we usually do. Joe, we'll talk again real soon. Thank you very much for today.
All right, Jim. Enjoy the football week.
Okay,
Bye.
bud. Thank you. Make sure you go to jimfeist.com for my plays and others. We have good articles, we got podcasts, and we have tremendous offers as well, and Jim Hurley Sports. Because you can get Joe Mac's plays, and they've been doing really, really well. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.